For over 3 decades, it was locked away, hidden behind the walls of Balmoral Castle. A sealed letter, written by King Charles shortly after Diana's tragic death, never meant to be seen by his sons. But now, Prince William and Prince Harry have read every word, and what it revealed shattered them. Charles's deepest regrets, his silent guilt, and a haunting confession: "I failed her, and I failed both of you." The emotional fallout has left the royal family shaken, public trust fractured, and Diana's ghost more present than ever. This wasn't just a letter, it was the truth they were never meant to find. A discovery, decades in the making. Few places in the royal estate hold more secrets than Balmoral Castle, a place steeped in tradition, shadowed by memory. Deep within its private vaults, sealed in a box labeled only "Private Heir Reading Only," lay a letter no one was meant to find, not yet. It was discovered during a quiet archival sweep, an inventory of royal correspondence meant only to update records. But what a staffer found, tucked beneath decades-old folders and secured with a red wax seal, was far from ordinary. It was a letter, dated late 1997, and on the envelope, in the unmistakable handwriting of the then Prince of Wales, were 2 names: William and Harry. The envelope had never been opened, never sent. Inside was a letter written by Charles shortly after the tragic death of Princess Diana. It had remained hidden for over 30 years, and now, with King Charles in fragile health and the monarchy quietly preparing for inevitable transitions, it surfaced. Accidentally or by fate, it doesn't matter. What matters is what the letter said, and what it did to the men it was meant for. When William and Harry were finally handed the envelope, there was silence. Staff members were reportedly dismissed. No aides, no media, no distractions. Just 2 sons, a single letter, and 3 decades of emotion waiting to detonate. That moment shattered the quiet, rehearsed stillness that so often defines royal life. It wasn't a public announcement or televised tribute. It was something far more powerful. It was the truth, finally breaking through. The secret Charles never spoke aloud. Inside the envelope, penned in raw and unfiltered emotion, was the one thing Charles had never given his sons: an unspoken truth, a confession. The letter began softly, even tenderly. Charles addressed them not as a king or a future monarch, but as a father. He wrote about grief, about confusion, about Diana. But as the paragraphs unfolded, the tone darkened. The words grew heavier. The admissions began. Charles confessed to knowing more than he ever let on. About Diana's isolation, her despair, her silent cries for help that echoed through palace walls and into tabloid headlines. He admitted he heard her, but didn't listen. That he saw her pain, but did nothing. He wrote of guilt, of regret, of helplessness masked by duty. "I failed her," he wrote, "and in doing so, I failed both of you." These weren't the words of a monarch. These were the cries of a broken man. A father mourning not just a wife, but the bridge he burned with his sons through years of silence and avoidance. Charles admitted he couldn't face the truth after Diana's death, that he buried it, literally and emotionally, and that this letter, written but never sent, was his way of confronting it, even if it came decades too late. There were no excuses, no defense, just sorrow, just truth. And for William and Harry, it was a bombshell that exploded long-buried wounds wide open. William and Harry's devastating reaction. The impact of the letter was instant and devastating. William, ever composed and publicly poised, read it in total silence. Those close to him say he looked pale, dazed, like he had seen a ghost. Halfway through, he put the letter down, stood up, and walked out. No words, just raw emotion. He didn't return for hours. Harry, on the other hand, didn't hide his reaction. He reportedly broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. His words were sharp, confused, aching. Why now? Why wait 30 years? The pain in his voice echoed through the room, one staff member later recalled. He had waited his whole adult life for answers, and when they finally came, they were drenched in decades of silence. For a long time, neither brother spoke. Not to each other, not to staff, not to aides waiting outside. It was as if time stopped, as if grief, fresh and ancient all at once, wrapped around them like fog. It was more than mourning. It was reopening a wound they had both forced themselves to live with, a wound that never fully healed. A letter that should have brought closure only delivered confusion. And yet, despite their different reactions, one thing united them in that moment: heartbreak. Their timing. Why was it hidden for so long? That was the question everyone began asking. Why now? Why had Charles kept this letter buried for over 30 years? And why had it never been delivered? It was discovered during a standard archive review. But was that timing truly accidental? The envelope had been placed in a secure box, one marked "Private Air Reading Only," buried beneath decades of paperwork. It was as if Charles had hidden it away for someone to find someday. But not while he was alive. Not while the monarchy still leaned heavily on its image of control. Insiders believe it was meant to be read after his death. A posthumous apology. A truth that could be told once he was no longer king, no longer responsible for preserving the institution. But with Charles's health now in question, his recent absences, reports of quiet treatments, whispers of cognitive decline, it may have surfaced prematurely. Others believe Charles always meant for them to find it when they were ready. But time, as it turned out, had other plans. There's also the darker theory that it was deliberately hidden to protect the monarchy. That revealing the depth of what Charles knew, how much he let happen, would have damaged the royal image beyond repair. Now, with that letter in the hands of the very sons it was meant for, the truth can no longer be contained. And its timing may be the final, brutal irony, arriving just when the monarchy is at its most vulnerable. Diana's ghost returns. The name wasn't needed, but it haunted every word. Diana's presence was in every line of the letter, every emotion, every regret. Charles didn't just confess his guilt. He confirmed what Diana had long hinted at in her Panorama interview, that she was isolated, that she was watched, that she was never truly heard. The letter aligned with her accounts, that he knew of the affairs, that he allowed the media chaos to fester, that he stood by, loyal to the institution, while she was left to drown in silence. For William and Harry, reading those words was like reliving the night she died all over again. The pain, the confusion, the unanswered questions, and now, answers that hurt just as much. For the public, Diana's legacy surged back to life. Her voice, her heartbreak, her lonely fight against the very system Charles now admitted he upheld. Suddenly, the past wasn't the past anymore. It was the present. And in that moment, Diana wasn't just a memory. She was a truth finally spoken aloud. The letter's emotional language, Charles didn't write like a king. He wrote like a man unraveling under decades of silence. The letter, long hidden in the archives, wasn't formal or polished. It was deeply personal, almost desperate. His handwriting curved unevenly across the page, betraying a trembling hand. The tone? Regretful, raw, and painfully human. He admitted what no royal ever had before. I silenced her with my silence. He confessed that Diana's pain was never invisible. He saw it, heard it, but chose not to act. He blamed the institution, but more than that, he blamed himself. I should have protected her, he wrote. Instead, I protected the crown. These were not just admissions of guilt. They were emotional scars, bleeding across paper. He spoke of lonely nights, of letters he almost wrote, of therapy sessions he never took, of the public mask he wore for so long that he forgot what truth even sounded like. And in one chilling line, Charles confessed, "If I had listened, she might still be here." For William and Harry, every word landed like a blow. This wasn't the father they knew. This was a man dismantling himself line by line, hoping, maybe praying, that honesty would somehow bring healing. But for his sons, it brought only more pain. How the letter could change the royal line. The emotional fallout was just the beginning. As the letter made its way through royal corridors, the palace buzzed with tension. Because this wasn't just a father unburdening himself, it was a king confessing to decades of inaction. And the question hung heavy in the air. What else has been hidden? Some palace aides believe this was just one of several sealed documents left by Charles. If true, the monarchy may be sitting on a time bomb of buried truths. For William, now standing on the edge of kingship, the timing couldn't be more complex. Should he continue as planned, knowing the past had been built on silence and pain? Or would this push him to take the monarchy in a different direction, one based on transparency? Royal historians have already begun questioning how the public will view Charles's legacy after this. Will he be seen as a man brave enough to finally speak, or one who waited too long? And more crucially, will the public still accept William without demanding accountability? If this was Charles's emotional will, it came with more than sorrow. It came with expectations. Brotherly bond, stronger or further broken. Grief has a strange way of bringing people together, or tearing them apart. For William and Harry, the letter did both. After reading it, the brothers reportedly sat in the same room for hours. No staff, no advisors, just silence, and two boys turned men reeling from the weight of truth. Harry, emotional, whispered, "We deserved the truth." William didn't reply, at least not immediately. They had walked different roads for years, publicly cordial, privately distant. But this letter changed something. For a moment, they were no longer Duke and Prince. They were just sons. Sons who had lost a mother, and now finally knew how. Some insiders say it's the first time in years they saw eye to eye, if only for a moment. Others say the letter opened a crack too wide to bridge. That William, torn between duty and devastation, couldn't forgive the timing. That Harry, validated but furious, saw it as too little, too late. But one thing is certain, the pain they shared was real and mutual. Whether it leads to healing or further separation, only time will tell. Camilla's silence and possible involvement. Camilla's name never appeared in the letter, yet with every word, her presence hovered like a shadow. She is inexplicably entwined in the story. She was the woman at the center of the marriage that fractured Diana's world. Later, she became the one Charles ultimately loved. But to many, she symbolizes his emotional withdrawal during Diana's most vulnerable years. That letter, penned by Charles in isolation and tucked away in a vault for 30 years, is a reckoning. The question now isn't just about Charles. It's about Camilla, too. Did she know what was written? Did she know it would surface? Rumors swirl that Camilla was aware of its existence, maybe even encouraged its safekeeping. Others say she had no inkling what lay in Balmoral's archive. Her reaction, or lack thereof, has created headlines. In the days after the discovery went public, Camilla canceled high-profile appearances. She skipped galas and dinners, avoided the press, and stayed indoors. Those familiar with her routine say her usually sharp confidence has softened, as if she's realizing that once private ties are exposed, public scrutiny inevitably follows. Some firebrand observers believe Camilla's silence is fear. Fear about public backlash, fear about the letter's contents, fear that trickle-down consequences may invade her carefully rebuilt public image. Others argue it's strategic restraint. She's staying quiet not out of guilt, but of caution. No statements, no interviews, no rehashing of a painful past. Yet the world hears silence differently depending on the listener. Her lack of comment is being interpreted by critics as guilt by association, or worse, guilt by complicity. Even supporters urge for transparency, a statement acknowledging her role in their shared past, her view on Charles's confession, or at least an explanation of her sudden withdrawal. But the damage has already been done. Once Camilla's silence took center stage, she became the reluctant protagonist in this chapter. A woman cast in stark relief against the shadows of Diana's legacy and Charles's confession. And so the question remains, is Camilla hiding behind a wall of discretion, or is she showing signs of emotional fracture under the weight of renewed scrutiny? That silence, no matter its source, has already altered how people see her. The public has started to see her not just as the queen consort, but as the possible enabler, or the one who stayed silent when Diana's voice needed protection most. In the aftermath of this revelation, Camilla faces her own reckoning. Her silence can't hold forever. Eventually, the woman at the center of this story may have to speak, and when she does, the question won't just be about what Charles hid, but about what she chose not to say. Charles's internal battle. Revealed, the letter revealed more than regrets. It exposed a man at war with himself. Charles, groomed from childhood to be king, had always been told to place duty above emotion. But in that letter, he laid bare the emotional toll of that expectation. He described years of guilt, of feeling caged by tradition, bound by endless protocols that stifled his ability to act. He confessed to following royal advisors who urged him to keep Diana quiet, distant, controlled, doing what they believed was right for the crown. Yet each decision felt more like a betrayal. In reality, those choices were suffocating him. He painted word pictures of sleepless nights haunted by Diana's voice, the echo of her pain that he admitted he ignored. He spoke of days numbed by the press's cruelty, the stories that shattered their family, the relentless glare of cameras, the whispers that became headlines. In that crucible, he admitted, "I didn't know how to love her in public or private." It was a line so simple and devastating it cut straight to the bone. This wasn't a letter from a king writing policy. It was a lament from a man who had lost everything. and only realized it too late. His emotional repression, his self-imposed silence, his cruel fear of vulnerability, none of it protected anyone. Instead, it isolated him, Diana, and ultimately distanced him from the sons he claimed to cherish. Every paragraph dripped with remorse. He admitted to underestimating the emotional damage his silence inflicted. He called himself complicit. He expressed regret for not speaking up when Diana was lonely, when she needed his public support. And there, in black ink on cream paper, he recognized the cruelest truth of all. Royal duty cost him love. The love he couldn't show, nor fully understand, until her absence made him pay. For Charles, this letter was the most honest thing he'd ever written. It was an emotional reckoning long overdue, a private truth he couldn't bear to voice when he was younger, stronger, and still the heir. He wrote because he finally understood the cost of silence and hoped his sons could forgive him. For William and Harry, it was the most painful thing they had ever read. Not because it broke their hearts, but because it broke expectations. They weren't just reading a confession, they were uncovering the emotional dysfunction at the heart of their family. A dysfunction built on duty, tradition, and tragedy. That letter might not bring Diana back. It might not repair the wounds it reopened. But it did something else. It revealed the real Charles, not the monarch, not the public figure, but the man. And in that revelation lay both the greatest sorrow and the first step toward healing. Public shock and outrage. Once the letter's existence became public, as unexpected leaks began to surface, the world reacted instantly. Tap-in journalists, broadcast newsrooms, and social feeds erupted in collective shock. This wasn't the typical scandal, it was something raw and far heavier. A king had confessed silent failure to his sons, not public indiscretion, but private regret, guilt, and remorse. And that cut deeper. Public opinion fractured. Sympathy burst for William and Harry, two sons finally given the truth they deserved. The global outpouring was immediate. Social posts expressing heartbreak, online memorials for Diana revived, and petitions demanding more answers. People felt cheated by secrecy, seeing this as a generational betrayal, where the monarchy prioritized preservation over truth. Critics pounced. Commentators accused Charles of hypocrisy, urging open conversation while perpetuating silence when it mattered most. Experts said this could mark a turning point in public trust. If royals can admit guilt in private, should the public not have known? The palace's silence amplified the blow. Official statements trailed behind, riddled with cautious language and obscured timelines. Media outlets played rebroadcasts of Diana's broadcasts, excerpts of Charles' interviews, and moments from royal events, all contextually reinterpreted under the new lens of his confession. Cultures dissected every public appearance of William and Harry. Were they unified now? Broke? Seeking justice? Some skeptics predicted a crisis of authority, while others believed honesty would rebuild trust. In that moment, the crown's image teetered, not on scandal, but on sorrow, accountability, and the hope for redemption. A crown in crisis. The monarchy has faced scandals before, but this was different. It wasn't just gossip or marital troubles, it was an emotional crisis that struck at the institution's very foundations. The revelation that Charles, the head of the crown, bore private guilt over Diana's suffering redefined the relationship between royals and people. This shift began to show in real time. Public engagements with Charles were cancelled or downgraded. William and Catherine took on more visible roles. Royal protocols quietly changed, honorifics adjusted, speeches rephrased, and legacy projects re-examined through the lens of Diana's life. It felt like a monarchy at war with itself. While playing calm, honesty alone wouldn't save the crown. It needed accountability. People demanded more than letters. They wanted clarity on Charles's role, Camilla's knowledge, the family dynamics that allowed Diana's suffering to go unspoken. Whether the monarchy responds with openness or retreats further into carefully managed silence could determine its future. The crown now faces a choice: confront its ghosts or be haunted by them. One letter, two futures. All of this hinges on what comes next. William and Harry have a decision. They can let this moment be a fissure that fractures them, or a foundation upon which to rebuild trust, both in their relationship and the monarchy. William stands poised to lead. He could embrace this letter as the spark that leads to renewed purpose, deeper public connection, and structural reform within the monarchy. He could become the first king guided by truth over tradition. But the weight of his father's confession may also cripple him, casting him as the son who inherited not just a throne, but decades of hidden regret. Harry, more removed from royal obligations, has been silent in public. But private empathy and rage may cause him to reconsider statements he's made. Might he return? Might he amplify Diana's voice in ways both sisters fought for? Whatever happens, the letter is now part of both legacy and future. The monarchy will face a reckoning. Either previously hidden truths are woven into a renewed narrative of redemption and healing, or they will be buried in spin and silence. And so, the final question hangs. Was this letter a confession in time, or a final betrayal? The monarchy stands at a crossroads, where one handwritten confession may either pave a path forward or mark the beginning of its final unraveling. One letter, two sons, 30 years of silence finally broken. As William and Harry grapple with the truth, the world watches, stunned by what Charles kept hidden. The monarchy may survive this moment, but nothing will ever be the same. Because once the truth is out, there's no going back.